that piece, which is obviously made out, that's 5mm plate steel laser cut, welded, zinc plated with a trivalent passivate. That was really a project of economy. It was trying to use as little material, or it's a combination of using either as little material or as little processing as possible to achieve this sort of structural form. Very much kind of taking, not inspiration, but a little bit of insight or information from the steel industry and RSJs and steel I-beams. That structure, which is very efficient, I then translated into a wooden version, which is produced by E&Y in Japan. So even though materially they're very, very different, and therefore visually they're different, structurally they adopt exactly the same geometry. So it's kind of just an example of how I copy myself. I copy myself because although yes, materially they're very different, I'm able to process them according to their own kind of particular or idiosyncratic processes, but structurally they work in exactly the same way. This kind of central I-beam with this kind of extended wide foot which gives stability, and also this kind of sense of cantilever. Depending on how you kind of photograph or shoot it, there's a lot of air. There's a lot of air here. There's a lot of space, which kind of gives this sort of very lightweight aspect. And the same with the third. This is called third chair. There's so much identity. There's so much information in the material itself. And yes, this is a wooden chair, but you don't see the original form of the material. You just see it as wood, whereas this you see as tree. And the difference between tree and wood is kind of extreme, but I really like to maintain as much of the tree in this, and I like to retain as much of the rock in this piece. So that's why in processing the gesture is so simple, and just let the material speak for itself. This is a bit of an experiment. In fact, this is project number 87. I think I started this in end of 2007, or at least I conceived the idea in 2007. But I only just made it last month, or the month. It was literally in March, and that's kind of something also quite unusual about this exhibition, is that the order of everything is the order in which I set up a section within my cataloguing of a project. So each time I start a new project, I number it. So the numbering of these, this is project number 87, but even though I started the project then and I set up a folder, I didn't actually produce anything until 2015. So this is 2007 to 2015. So that's why it's here, even though I've only just made it. And this is made in a foundry. Originally made the form out of wax sprues, and then just applied exactly the same process that the foundry used in order to cast it into bronze. But once they've built up the ceramic slurry kind of slip shell and fired the shell, normally they would then cast bronze into this, but I just asked them to freeze the process. So this is now ceramic. It's like slip casting, but it's reverse slip casting. So it's casting the ceramic onto the outside of the wax mold, and then it's fired in the kiln, which is what they would do normally, and then it's left as is. And I don't really know how durable it is, actually. I kind of need to test it, but in terms of sound, it's vitrified. It's turned to ceramic. So maybe it's very, very strong. But for the exhibition, I was trying to find a way of preventing people from sitting on it. So I thought putting something that is very fragile on top of something that could be fragile will communicate that they're not to sit on it, but without saying "do not sit," which I really hate in exhibitions. So I'm just seeing how long they last for, because maybe they'll wilt away and die. But yeah, it also looks